All right, we're going to try it again. Lo doing the YouTube live with our friends over at Bleav. A big thank you to all of you for checking in. Last time went so well, we figured we would do it again. An opportunity for us to interact with you live in the moment as opposed to just kind of thumbing through the comments after the video posts. So hopefully going to be a number of you that pop in here that want to throw something our way, and we can react to it either in the moment or kind of after we get through sort of what we're going to do today. And as let's see, today is Wednesday. So we're 3 weeks out, Lo, 3 weeks from tomorrow or actually 2 weeks from tomorrow, from the draft. So first round Thursday, second, third round Friday, rest of the draft on Saturday. So we are 2 weeks out. And I figured today, kind of the best approach might be to go through all the latest mock drafts that have posted and kind of what everybody out there is thinking when it comes to the Chargers. And I figured I would take whatever was out there. So for the most part, their first round, their first round only. Mel Kiper just posted 2 rounds. Chad Reuter over at NFL.com just posted 5 rounds. So we have 5 picks for the Chargers. The Athletic did 3 rounds, and PFF did just 1. And the latest NFL Network, Rhett Lewis, just did 1. So that's kind of figured we'd throw that all together, aggregate it, and sort of see where those folks believe the Chargers might be headed. But great to see you, Lo. It's great to be here. A big thank you to everybody for supporting Bleav in Chargers and as we are part of the Bleav Network. Remember, you can leave comments here on the YouTube channel. Hit that little like thumb. That helps us a lot, helps grow the pod. And, of course, if you're listening and not part of the video component, anything you can do to rate and review helps us as well. So, all right, Lo, been a week. How's everything going? Bring you in here and start talking.
Yeah, absolutely, Money. I love when I can just sit back and just let you run because you're great. You're great at it. You get it. We got to see a great national championship. Don't know if you won any money. I was so disappointed. I wanted Duke to win that friggin' game. It was crazy to watch those guys go ice cold at the last 7 minutes. It was just like they looked like they were going to score at least 75 to 80 points, and they came to a screeching halt. Wasn't able to get the ball in on the inbounds. You're like, what is going on? And you saw them just kind of come unglued and lose to a Houston team that you watched up close and personal. You said they can play great defense. They played great defense even against Florida in the championship, lost that game. But you called it great defense, but I just thought Duke was a talented team. Best team didn't win the NCAA this year.
Yeah, I think it's just a reminder and something to just kind of keep filed away when you're watching sports. These are kids, especially that Duke team. That Duke team was kids. That is 4 freshmen out there. And, when times are tight and things get weird and pressure starts to hit, when you're a Houston team that's average age is 22, 23, and you got a Duke team with a bunch of 18 and 19-year-olds, that stuff comes into play. And I think, for those that maybe lost some money or it blew their pool apart or whatever, just, remember, these are young men, but really more kids than young men. And that's how these things end up going sideways and can look like that. But it was wild to watch. That's for sure.
Wasn't it interesting though, Money? Did it kind of remind you? Was it reminiscent? And we got to get into football and Charger fans like, what the hell are you talking about? But wasn't it kind of reminiscent back in the day when you had the Fab Five? If the game was close, you saw how Jalen Rose, remember the infamous timeout
from Chris Webber.
Webber. It's just like you saw, just kind of the game got big at the end of the game. Sometimes the lights get big, especially for young kids. That team, the Fab Five, they were all freshmen and just that stage. So it's interesting just watching that parallel, kind of the same thing, in my opinion, a little bit with Duke, just wasn't in the big game.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a fun tournament. I liked having all 4 ones in there. Incredibly competitive, as you could see. Both teams needed to rally late to advance. Florida digging out of a 12-point hole, and it was against Auburn. It was a lot of fun. So that's what we like, though. It's all right. It works because it's competition. We love competition. What does Jim Harbaugh say? Competitors welcome. We love competitors.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
So with sports, and how about the Chargers? Where they're at. How are they going to dig out of the hole? You saw the way that the season didn't end the way we liked, got into the playoffs and lose a game. And you said, hey, what do they do? I know the draft's coming up in a couple of weeks. And you're like, how does this team go out and make sure that, that they get it right? And I've watched the guy that you talked about the other day, forget the young man's name, the defensive lineman.
Walter Nolen.
Nolen. God, I watched his highlights and just watched his reel, watched him throwing guys around, watching him split a double team in the backfield, tackling the quarterback. just watching this guy during there taking handoffs from the quarterback, that's how quick his first step is. He's big hands, powerful, got a great punch. Money, I don't think he's going to be there. I think the Niners with their defense, if he makes it to even the Niners pick, I think they grab him. I'm hearing San Francisco likes this kid a lot. I know you, like you said, had some problems, but I think teams are going to let that go out the door because this kid you talked about, he's big, he's physical, he's quick, he's nifty, and he's powerful.
Yeah, I think, the only reason why Nolen would be there is because of all this sort of buzz that some teams have questions about him. And I can't say it enough. It's not character issues. It's maturity, and it's, some of the things that have leaked out that I almost hate even kind of talking about him because it's not like it's
they're
verified,
out there.
at least not verified enough. But why did he leave Texas A&M to go to Ole Miss? It's actually pretty funny. I would just say it's a funny story. If you can find it, dig it up. I don't want to, mention it just in case it's not verified or anything, but it is pretty funny, and you should be able to find it out on the internet. But, it's does he love football? Is he, because like you said, if you watch the highlight film, yeah, dude, this guy is like, how's this guy not going in the top 5? But I think the questions are, does he love football? Does he kind of loaf a little bit in games and just sort of cruise for periods of time? And that's the sort of, if you're going to invest a first round pick, you sort of, what is the one attribute, off-field attribute that you want, or non-physical attribute that you want? That's high motor. Guy that wants to compete every single snap, that loves football, that, the Derwin James, I want to be at Joey Bosa. I want to be out there. I want to get the quarterbacks, what I want to do. And I think that's kind of where those are the questions that are kind of being introduced about Walter Nolen. And the only reason somebody with that kind of talent and those measurables that would last until pick 22 is because people are legitimately concerned about that. Do I think he's going to be there? I don't. I think it's one thing to have the situation surrounding like Mike Green that could cause him to slide. And I still don't think the Chargers would pick him, even if he were there at 22, and considering his talent, it'd be an incredible value to get him there and fill that edge. But I think that's a different deal than Nolen. Nolen's like, do we have good coaching? Do we have good culture? Do we have people here that can, with Nolen, Low, the reason why I'm so adamant about it is just because I believe in these coaches. I love, just what Mike Elston's done with everybody on that defensive line, number one. Two, I can't remember who it was that told the story, but I believe I shared it here, that said anytime we were talking about, Marcus May and Eli Apple and how these guys are coming in and immediately making an impact. And they said, well, the first person that meets him is Derwin. Derwin makes a point that, Joe lets him know, hey, we got a new guy. He's coming in, and Derwin's there to meet him. And Derwin's there to say, hey, man, we're here to get this rolling. I'm here to support you. Let's get you rolling, make you some money. But this is how things work here. And he's like, you can't have a better person to welcome somebody in mid-season and say, you're here with us. We're going to roll together. Right. Let's go get it. And so I just kind of think about Walter Nolen walking through that door, and here's Derwin James. Like, what's up, man? We're going to get now. Number one recruit in the country when you're in high school. I know what that's all about. You're looking at one right here. Let's go get. Like, there's things that are in the Chargers ecosystem that to me would work with a player like that.
Without a doubt. And you hit the nail right on the head, Money, when you're talking about just having the right leadership in that place. And then you're going to be playing with a guy named Khalil Mack. You think about when you walk out on that field. Nolen in college, he walked out on the field. He knew he was the best on his team. What other defensive lineman did he wasn't better than? So now you're a rookie. You're coming to a veteran team, NFL team, where a bunch of these guys are older than you. These guys are 30, 25, 30. You're a young cat, and they're going to show you how to be a practice. They're going to show you how to be a player. And you're like you're talking about a culture. So Nolen comes to the Chargers team. You think about the culture that's already here and the way that guys work. And you're talking about Derwin. This guy has no reason to descend. He's going to ascend because he's going to be held at a very high level. And trust me, college, you probably say something, Nolen, you might get slapped, or the guy might look at you like, okay, I can't talk. Look at my productivity. He can't do that in the pros. In the pros, that all these guys are good, and he's going to be looking at these guys differently. So I think when you have a guy that, that has some issues, but when you bring them to a right team with the right veterans, the right chemistry, and the right makeup and the coaching staff, I think those problems they don't last.
Yeah, there's so many things at work. It's not like these picks aren't linear, man. There's so many moving parts. And like we said, so there's that thing with Nolen that's causing him to slide a little bit. And then you factor in what's around him that you're like, okay, I can either take Walter Nolen or I got Derek Harmon. I got Kenneth Grant here. And then it's also a super deep tackle class. So now you're like, well, or I can grab Tyleik Williams in the second round, Shamar Turner in the second round. If I need a just pass rushing interior lineman, Omar Norman Lott in the second round. CJ West is a guy that's getting a lot of buzz. I thought he'd be like a day 3, high day 3, man, probably late day 2 guy. He's not being projected to go in the second round. So that's kind of all the stuff that could lead to a prospect like that sliding. It's why it's hard for me to even entertain Colston Loveland or Tyler Warren. I can't. I think to me, it feels like in talking to everybody around the draft, the gap between those two guys and the next group of tight ends is pretty dramatic and pretty like, people feel like, hey, man, I can drop Tyler Warren in and I can drop Colston Loveland in tomorrow, and these guys are going to be a problem for teams. The rest of the tight end group, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, I'd love to develop Arroyo with all these athletic traits. Cross my fingers on the injury. I know for some reason Mason Taylor, I love him. He is so smooth, and I've heard nothing but incredible things about him inside the program and what they think of him as a player and how he has developed year after year after year. I like guys with good hands. I don't know why. Maybe if you're going to catch the ball, I like guys that can't catch the ball. It's one of those attributes that I like them to have. He's really good at catching the ball. So that's why I'm kind of sort of focused on Nolen, because I'm like, man, that's the one guy that I could see sliding and then being like, hey, man, this guy's number 6 on our list, on our vertical 150. This guy's at number 7 or 7. And that's also why, and that's also why I think Colston Loveland is like, if he's there at 22, he's top 10 on just about everybody's vertical. So like, that's one where it's like, yeah, that's kind of a no-brainer. As we get into the other ones, I think you start to see like, yeah, some guys have Gray Zabel at 13. Some have him at 31. Some guys have Kenneth Grant at 14. Some have him at 36. Like, there's variance. When it comes to guys like Colston Loveland and Tyler, they're all up there. Amari Hampton's up there. He's in the top 15. Ashton Jeanty's number 1 or 2. Like, that's kind of what I'm getting with. When it comes to Nolen and why there's been so much focus on him, because I do think there's a very good possibility he's at 22 and he's the best player on their board. And now they just have to navigate the off-field concerns.
Yeah, man, God, the way you put it, and going through it and what could happen, and you say, wow, that is possible that he could end up at 22. If he is, he's a steal. And you take him, and I think the Chargers jumped all over that. You're like you said, you can't get a tight end that you think is going to come in. You look at Taylor, you say, okay, good, good genes, good bloodline. But you need a guy that's saying, hey, look, he's got to come in and play. And you can't you need a guy, and you're talking about the guy that we're talking about, he can come in on day 1 and he can wreck shop. And if you have to ease a guy in with the Chargers, if they want to get where we think that this team can go, you need to make sure that the product that you're going to get, especially at that high of drive capital, they need to contribute. And it's not just, okay, 3 plays here. You need that player to give you 20 to 30%, of play time and play at a high level, especially if you're trying to compete deep in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, look at last year. Joe Alt, darn near every single snap. And one of the best tackles in football. Ladd McConkey, darn near every single snap. And the second best slot receiver in football behind CeeDee Lamb. Like, those are your top 2 picks. It's hard to take a developmental player at that position. Now, that being said, I do like those tight ends. And I think the signing of Tyler Conklin helps alleviate some of that concern, right? Like, I got no problem taking Harold Fannin. We've talked about that already. I got no problem taking Mason Taylor, Elijah Arroyo, Ferguson. Like, I'm fine with those picks because I do think Conklin's going to have a big year. I just do. I like the way he moves. I like the way he's good catching the ball. He's good in traffic. Look at last year. The Jets were a freaking tire fire, and the guy still ends up with 60 catches, 500 yards, 5 touchdowns. Like, if you're doing that with Will Dissly, you're fine. Done. Great.
Right.
That's great. Right. And you know what? He doesn't have a circus at offensive coordinator. He doesn't have a freaking sideshow at quarterback that's targeting Alan Lazard 100 times a game. And like, he's with Justin Herbert. You know, like that's sort of what we're talking about. And I know for a fact that the Chargers liked Conklin before a couple years ago when he was out there. So this is someone that they've had their eye on for a while. I want to answer a question real quick, Lo, because we appreciate all you folks popping in here. Chris Hansen says, have you thought about any trade down scenarios? Yes, I have, Chris. And you know what? Maybe I'll run the PFF mock simulator. I love it, but it's just been super wonky. I can't get it off its ranking of Loveland, and he's there every single time the Chargers pick at 22. So I don't vary my picks at all because it's like, yeah, that guy's probably not – he's not getting past the Colts or the Broncos. Like, I just don't – if he does, man, I'll be beyond stoked if he's there. I think that will be a very real possibility for them to draft him. He's there at 22. It's hard for me to envision that. So, but Chris, to your point, trade down because a lot of people have talked about the middle class of this draft picks. You know, how many first round, kind of the way that scouts talk about the draft is first round grades. How many first round grades you got? And every year I go to the draft, I got my friends, or I go to the combine, I got my friends that are scouts. I typically, hey, how many first round grades you got? And I remember last year was the highest number I had ever heard. I had just about every single person I talked to give me a number in the 20s, which is incredibly high. This year, it was more 13 to 16, but then they would all follow it up with this. But man, picks 16 through 60, they're just right here. They all would say the same thing, that like, man, this middle. So that's where the trade down scenario comes in, Chris. But it also comes in where it happens every year, right? There's no quarterbacks, man. There's no quarterbacks. Oh, I think Jackson Dart might go in the first round now. Oh, I think Jalen Milroe, someone kind of sees the raw talent, and that's what you want to bet on. You don't want to try to hit the double at quarterback. You want to try to hit the home run. And so now Jalen Milroe is starting to get some buzz as that potential. So if that happens, to your point, Chris, trade down, that's where it can come into play. So many of the insiders have sort of drawn this line between Jackson Dart and the Rams at 26. And it's like, if you got to hop in front of that team, all right, baby, we're in business at 22. So yes, to answer your question about that, I could see a trade down scenario because of what those scouts told me about the middle class of this draft, how many first round grades we have, what might be available at 22, and the fact that we could end up having a third and maybe even now a fourth quarterback go in the first round.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting just to see how the quarterback, like you said, it's always quarterback. If it's none there, trust me, by the draft, there's someone's going to pop up in that top 10. You know, the quarterbacks, you know how that goes. But I just think that when you trade down, if it's the player that you want, you can give up a ransom. If you got to keep some draft choice, but if you have a player that's a generational player, like you're saying, when they're that good, you trade your second or your third round pick for a guy that can change the game. I do it, but if not, I stay put and I trade back instead of trading down back, because now you can get more guys, you get more quality, you get more guys that can come in and fill some of your needs. And that's where we got to look at this Charger team. So I know he said, hey, trade down. What about trading back, Money? When you think about the Chargers, are they in a position, because you went out, like you said,
trading up?
Instead of trading, instead of going down, going back, back in the draft. So instead of being at 22, instead of being at 22, what about going? Was he saying going back to like 28, 20?
Yeah, that's what he's saying. He's saying,
I'm more on that with him. I'm more trading up instead of going down. How are you if you were going to go down? Do you think the Chargers are in that position, or you think they would never? Or is there a player that jumps out to you saying, look, the Chargers got to get out of the 22nd spot to get this player, and I think this player would make this team, eons better? Is there a player that
there's two? I think for the Chargers, there's probably two. It's Tyler Warren and it's Ashton Jeanty, right? If for whatever reason they start to slide and they find themselves in the early teens, because look, the price to go up in the first round is just massive. It always ridiculous. Is. It is a big price to pay. So that's but if I do think Tyler Warren is a perfect tight end in a Jim Harbaugh offense, right? And at the same time, I also think that Ashton Jeanty is a generational talent at running back. And as excited as we are about how deep this class is, and picking up a Travion Henderson or a Quinshon Judkins in the second round, or an RJ Harvey or a Dylan Sampson in the third round, or a Giddens in the fourth round, and would that be comparable? Like, Jeanty is special. The guy just does not go down ever. It's crazy to watch.
He's tough. What is that? And so, Money, what does that look like? Is that saying I'm willing to go 2 picks? Is that how far do you go? Because you're going to pick. Is that giving up the first, and is that giving up your first
second
for next year?
Yes.
If you, okay. So
that's
you're
probably, or you're looking at probably your second and third this year, and now you're not picking until day 3. It's giving up your 2 this year, and maybe you can get away, if it's not too high, with a 2 and like a 4 next year, or that could become a 3 if he hits certain benchmarks. Like, you can try to do that. And I think it's just a question of how special do you think this guy is? But you know what, Lo? It's moot. He ain't getting there. He's going to get picked in the top 8. I can't imagine the Jets not taking him at 7. The Raiders are tied to him like crazy at 6, unless for some reason Shedeur slides. But they have Geno on this 2-year contract, so would they do that? That stuff I'm not sure about. So, yes, I'd be more apt to go back than up because of how strong this middle class is. And it happened I ran a mock draft through Mock Draft Database, just because, like I said, the stuff that was happening at PFF was just a little too wonky. This was a little too wonky for me, but I got offered a ton of trade down scenarios in the one I just ran. I don't want to do it again because maybe we can do it. It could be kind of fun to do it again. But I ended up able to trade back a few picks and ended up with Amari and Hampton, Jaden Higgins, and Harold Fannin as my first 3 picks. So got my running back, second best back in the draft. I got my X receiver and Jaden Higgins, my big bodied 6'3", 50-50 ball winner. X, take the top off the defense receiver, and I got Harold Fannin, my tight end. So I really helped the offense. I ended up taking CJ West with my final pick in the 3rd round. So, I mean, that's a hell of a draft from trade.
Wow.
Do I think it could look like that? No. I don't think there's any chance it looks like that. But that's kind of the thing that happened. And as if I want to do it again, if I restart it, I'll give you an idea of kind of what we're looking at of kind of like some of the trades that they had offered. Because, like I said, when it becomes a quarterback draft, that's when you're going to get value. That's when you're able to back out. So here we go. It's running through. We're on the clock. And look, this is like one of those Jahdae Barron's there. Probably top 10 grade, easily a first-round grade. Just maybe he slid because they thought he's a little bit on the smallish side. But you're talking about Trent McDuffie, Brian Branch, super versatile defensive back. I'd take him in a second. Colston Loveland's there as well. Now I've got this issue. And this is kind of so as I run this exercise, this is exactly what happens in a draft room, right? You didn't expect Barron to be there. You got lucky, and Colston Loveland is there. Kenneth Grant is there. Amari and Hampton is there. Walter Nolen is there. So, like, you've got all these players there. And so this is where something weird that you don't expect to happen happens. And you're like, oh, I never thought they'd take a corner. But it's like, Jahdae Barron is a freaking top 10 talent in this draft. He should not slide out of the top 10. He's that good. For whatever reason, maybe quarterbacks went ahead of him or something, and bang. Because the gap between Barron and the next corner that you're going to get in the second round is so big that you've got to take him. So I draft Barron there, and then we're now running through. I think I didn't have this thing on a fast enough draft, so my apologies, everybody, for dealing with us. So here we go. Now I get to my 55th pick, and because I got my corner there, and I got a corner at an incredible value, I now have, all right, so now I got offered a bunch of stuff to get out of 55 from the Giants. They want to give me their 2 and their 3 next year to take my 2 this year, but I'll just reject that for the sake. So here we go. Now I've got the Seahawks offering me 92, 137, 172 for 55, plus a second next year. There's no way they would ever offer that for 55.
No.
I got all these different trade downs. So now I'm looking at, okay, what's available to me at 55? Bang. I passed on Colston Loveland, but here's Mason Taylor. At 55, I'm totally comfortable with that. I've got the running backs. Quinshon Judkins is there. I've got the defensive tackle, Tyleik Williams. A little bit, not enough of a pass rush on that one. I like Darius Alexander, the other defensive tackle, but so that's what I'm talking about. I skip on Loveland, but I feel good about getting what I believe is the best cornerback in the draft, and now Mason Taylor is there for me because I got Tyler Conklin. Okay, I can be a little bit more patient. I don't need Mason Taylor to play 500 snaps for me at receiving tight end, and that's kind of how this stuff can play out. So now I've got reject. Let's see what's available to me now. So now I still need that defensive tackle. I still need a wide receiver. I still need a running back. Who's on here right now? Let me click running backs to see if I can fill that position. And Scadaboo's here with my 86 pick. I got Damian Martinez. I got Dylan Sampson. I got RJ Harvey. Man, of any four of those backs, I think I put Scadaboo and Harvey ahead of the other two. So Scadaboo's a possibility for me at running back if I want to go defensive line. Let's see. We got Nomar. I already talked about Norman Lott as a pass rusher. I like Joshua Farmer as well. Ty Robinson, nice big-bodied farm freaking raised whitey at defensive lineman. You got a bunch of different options for you. So, sorry. I don't want to go through that and bore everybody, but that's kind of what I'm talking about, Lo. Those are the sort of things that come up where players are available or they're not.
Yeah, and you look at the draft and you think about, okay, Tennessee's going to go quarterback. Travis Hunter, is probably going to be the second pick going to Cleveland. Everyone's looking at that. O tackle probably the third. You're talking about Armstead outside. Offensive tackle should be solidified. Where's the slippage to you when you think about who you think when you look at the Raiders? They have one mock draft have them taking McMillan. Wide receiver.
Yeah.
Do you think that's where it can start to get weird, where the Raiders, you think, could take a running back, receiver, could take, quarterback? Where is that the spot that you say, okay, I think these top four is going to be in order? Is the Raiders, is that the pick that can start where you're saying, okay, if that happens, now this team's going to do that. So now you're starting to talk about guys that the Chargers want start to become more realistic?
I think the weird part is probably 2 and 3, right? Because what do people think of Shedeur Sanders? Cleveland needs a quarterback, Giants need a quarterback, and if they're going to pass on Sanders, what does that do for the rest of the draft? How does that? Because if they take him, now Jackson Dart becomes more of a commodity. That now Jalen Milroe becomes more of a commodity. Tyler Shuck becomes more of a commodity because you've got 2 quarterbacks off the board in the first 3 picks. If Sanders slides, then
and he might slide all the way to 6 to the Jets, maybe,
Yeah, 7 to the Jets, 9 to the Saints. Like that's what, so to me, that's a big pivot point. I think the other is, I don't really think there's much because I just feel like there's so few first round grades. That's why, like when Barron was there in that mock draft, it's like that guy's got a first round grade on every single scout's report card. Every single one. Same with Colston Loveland. I'm sure he's got a first-round grade. So, those are the players that you take. I want to get through some of these questions because I don't want to leave these people hanging too long. We appreciate you popping in on the lives. Trade down. Okay, draft Gray Zabel first. Edge, trenches. So, Tony, I mentioned I did all the mock drafts. So Mel Kiper has Gray Zabel. He just posted his, and respect the hell out of Mel. He's been in the game longer than anybody else. He's got a ton of sources, and he doesn't throw this stuff out there willy-nilly. This is based on a lot of his intel and what he thinks. Remember, when people do mock drafts, it's not who they think are the best players. It's what they think and what they're hearing is going to happen. That's sort of what a mock draft is. When you see them post their top 50s, that's what they think of players and the order that they would rank them in. So when Mel has Gray Zabel going to the Chargers, probably means he maybe heard a little something that he doesn't think he's going to go to the Bengals or to the Cardinals or to a team ahead of them that might have that interior O-line need and that might be there at 22, and he probably thinks the Chargers are pretty sweet on him, and that's why he put him there. Now, who's still on the board? Donavon Ezeiruaku, the edge from Boston College, that I'm sure they like a lot, incredibly productive. Shamar Stewart, who I'm not crazy about, but incredibly athletic. Egbuka, the receiver out of Ohio State, was still on the board. Walter Nolen was still on the board. Kenneth Grant was still on the board, and he gave him Gray Zabel. So that was to answer your question, or Tony, to back up your point. Mel agrees with you. Draft Gray Zabel in the first round to have that center guard flexibility and continue to fix your offensive line. Tevin agrees. I'm grabbing Zabel, trading up, using a 6 to grab Mason Taylor. I don't know if a 6 is going to get you up there, Tevin. I mean, and obviously, Tevin, it all has to do with, how many spots up are you going to get Mason Taylor? Last year they used a 5th rounder to go up 3 spots to get, Ladd McConkey. They went from 37 to 34, gave up a 5th. So I think they might have swapped a 5th. I think that's what it was. They jumped 3 spots in the 2nd and slid like 40 or 50 spots between the 5th and the 6th round. So if Zabel's gone, I'm grabbing Kenneth Grant. I got no problem with Kenneth Grant. Love Kenneth Grant. Incredible player. Massive human. 330 pounds. Jim Harbaugh called him the mutant when he was at Michigan. But, I think it also depends who else is there. Is Walter Nolen there? Is Derek Harmon there? Because those guys are going to give you a little bit more pass rush, whereas Kenneth Grant is going to be a little bit more of that Poona Ford sort of style player. So what do you want with that first-round pick?
Where were you at on Marshall Green, the edge rusher?
Yeah. So that's kind of what I was getting at out of Marshall.
Yeah.
So that's sort of what I was getting at with Green is there's issues, serious issues. So that's kind of
he's a guy that if he didn't have his issues, if the issues wasn't there, is he? So you think he's a generational talent? Is where are you at on him, money? Because I know the issues.
Yeah, he's got to be. He is an exceptional player. He is so twitched up. And, the only reason why he's at Marshall is because he left Virginia, like there's that. Yeah. So I don't like sharing those things because
I understand.
I think it's up to you to go find them. It's not good. I'll leave it at that. It's not good. And I just don't think the Chargers have always been an organization there's organizations that are okay with that. There are organizations that just don't really want to lean into it, that aren't comfortable with it. Right. And, some of them are at the top of the division and some of them aren't. And it's just kind of up to how that works in the AFC West. But, but yeah, Mike Green, I think just go ahead and look it up. And I think that'll kind of give you an idea of sort of, it's, he's incredible. I just wanted to pull up his measurables. 6'4", 248, 90th percentile in win rate, in run stops. And he is, dude, he put on a freaking show. Yeah, he can play. So, yeah.
Okay.
Let's see what we got here. That was, since we all know Loveland won't be there, who would you pick between Grant or Nolen? Crush again for me personally. I'm willing to roll the dice on Nolen. I think Grant is kind of that. Hey, you got to hit a double. You can't strike out on your first round pick when you're swinging for a home run. So I get the whole Grant thing, right? It's like I think Grant is a no brainer. You're hitting a double and you're feeling really good about that. For me, with this again, it's all it's all circumstance. The circumstances of what the Chargers have in that room, to me, warrant taking that bigger swing and a potential miss on Nolen for some of the concerns that he might have. So that's me, but I totally get the Grant thing. And the only thing you don't want to do with your first round pick is strike out. So just knock it, get a base knock and feel great about it. And Kenneth Grant, no question about it, is giving you extra bases. He's easily a double and has some great upside, but it's not, the ceilings are
right
here, the floor Grant, the ceiling Nolen is kind of what we're talking about.
I totally understand. And you talk about Tyler Warner when you talk about the tight end from Penn State. Is he a guy that you think has a huge ceiling to money when you think about huge? So he's a guy you can come in day one and he's going to wreck this league. Is he that type of tight end in your opinion?
Yeah, just watch I know the USC defense was pretty suspect, but watch the USC game. It's one of the most incredible displays of football prowess by a non-quarterback on the offensive side of the ball that you will ever see. It was absurd, like truly sublime. It made your mind couldn't comprehend what it was watching, what he was doing in that game, and how they had zero answers for him just over and over and over again, and the different ways in which he was doing it. So, Warren's a big dude, man. He can block. DJ, I think, described him best as he's that billboard tight end that's just that massive body that nobody can cover, just streaking down the seam. And it's like, yeah, dude, you got no answers for this. You have no answers for this. And he'll clean you out in the run game. He's incredible. I'd be very, very, very surprised if he got past the Colts at 14. I think it just doesn't make sense for him to get past there, considering the needs of some of these teams and what you can do and what that position means now in this league. And the kind of just look at what Travis Kelce has done with the Chiefs for all these years. The amount of money that McBride just got, I think $19 million a year is what he got from the Cardinals to become the highest paid tight end. So now you're getting tight ends that there is financial incentive to now draft them in the first round and keep them cost controlled for 6 years, like running backs, because you're going to get them on a discount. Same thing with wide receiver. Like, that's what people are talking about. Can I get out of paying him $30 million, so I'm only paying him $4 million and get all this value at this position? And everybody's getting paid now, man. Tackles are making $30 million. You know, it's like offensive linemen are making.
Everybody's getting paid now. I'm with you. If I'm a team and I look at it and you're telling me, where do I get my most value now? And outside now, looking in the way that the league is structured, and you and I, we spoke about this a while back, running backs at the age of 28 and 30, when guys are now coming into their prime, getting the huge contracts for tackles and receivers and quarterbacks at 28, 29, they're getting huge. Running backs are getting ready to start to decline. So if you really need a runner, don't wait to free agency. Get him if you think that this guy's going to carry the ball 300, 400 times a year. Get that guy now. Spend the draft capital in that first round and a high pick if he's that type, like the Gentry, that type of a guy. Yeah. It's nothing wrong with going 2 or 3 or 4 picking, because give them their money then, because when they're getting ready to go on that slide, don't give them that second contract.
No, that's exactly right.
I'm with you. I'm changing the way the running back, the way they enter the draft, they should put more value on the running back, in my opinion, than they ever have, instead of saying, I want to wait to a second contract to see what. No, I'm jumping earlier now.
Yeah. Get him for 6 years and then move on. And sometimes that makes sense. And sometimes if you're the Giants and HBO is following you and they document it and he goes to the Eagles and puts together one of the greatest seasons in running back history for your division foe, you take the Acela for an hour and a half and you end up in Philly and there's Saquon putting it on you, then maybe you should have re-signed him. Maybe you shouldn't have kind of kicked him to the curb. There are exceptions. But again, he ain't going to do that in New York like he is in Philadelphia with the best offensive line. And that's so. But you're absolutely right, Lo. If you feel like we've got the offensive line settled, we've got receiver settled, we've got tight end settled, let's drop him in there, man. Let's drop in that runner. And
Derrick Henry, he's not going to do that again in ball. Look at what he did good in Baltimore. No. Saquon, he did good, but these guys, they gave you their best years. That's just what it is.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Let's get through a couple of these. Since we all know we already did that. So Tonali just finished work at 5:15 p.m. over in the UK. Happy to turn on my favorite Bolt podcast. Hello from across the pond. Appreciate it. Hey. Hopefully we're out there in the UK soon. Going to Brazil this year. Lo, I think you're going, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna meet you out there, right? We're gonna be out there for 4 days, 5 days. Head out on Tuesday, and I'm coming back on Saturday. So going to Brazil. It's airfare, everything's taken care of. It's low is about $200 a month that you can get on this Brazil trip. But I'll tell you more to come in the next pod. I'll give you all the rundown what we're gonna do. But I'll meet you there, Money, for sure. How long are you gonna be out there?
I have no idea. However long the Chargers are gonna be there, because I'm on the charter, man. I'm with when the team goes, I go. Where they go, I go. Unless they tell me I can't leave the hotel and drive an hour and a half to the water and surf, then I go where they don't go. And I will figure out a way to sneak out of that place and get out there. So that's the only thing listen, my brain is soaked with salt water. It's all I think about.
I know. Are you looking forward to that
water in Brazil? Yes, absolutely.
Have you heard about the waves there? They got some, is that a great spot?
Incredible.
Really?
Yeah, incredible. So I'm very excited. I haven't checked to see what the swell is that time of year, but I assume it'll be great. So yeah, that's all I'm concerned about. You guys can figure out where you're going to eat and drink and what sites you want to see in museums and all that. I just need to go soak my freaking brain in salt water. Izzy, what's up, Money and Zoe? And Zoe, what's up, Izzy? Need to find a long-term replacement for Khalil Mack at some point. That's a great point, Brendan. So here, let's get through some of these. PFF had the Chargers. So here you go. Shoot, I should have brought this up earlier. This was the PFF mock that just posted yesterday. You asked about trading up, Lo, if that player is there. I vehemently disagree with what this person did. I don't know who it was. I apologize. But in their mock, they had the Chargers trading from 22 to 16 with the Cardinals They gave up their 3rd rounder and their 5th rounder, 86 and 181, to go from 22 to 16. So they lose a 3rd, they go up 6 picks, and they had him draft Matthew Golden. If they were to make that look, if they were giving up a 3rd and a 5th, and they were going up to get Colston Loveland, or they were going up to get Jeanty, or they're going up to get, whatever, somebody slides. Golden to me is not, he's a good receiver. I can't imagine a scout having a 1st round grade on him. I just don't see how they would sort of reconcile that, with the number of games that the majority of his production came from. I know the 4.29 speed is there. That's awesome. He's not a huge guy, so I think there's probably still a little bit concern about dropping him on the outside full time. And can he be that full-time X? Is he a Z? How often do you have to play him in the slot? I mean, that's a lot to give up to get that individual player, because I think there's a good chance that he'd be there at 22. So that was PFF's deal. And let's see. Here's I'll go through these. The Athletic had them taking Amari and Hampton in the 1st. Speaking to your running back point, Low, drop him in, and man, he's good. He's really, really, really good. If you're the kind of person that's excited about Ashton Jeanty, just know that scouts feel similarly about Amari and Hampton, about the contact balance, about the ability to run between the tackles, the ability to hit home runs after you get to the 2nd level, the ability to catch passes, and just for Hampton, the physical stature is impressive. He is chiseled. He's a Greek god chiseled-like prospect. So they had him, even though they had Barron on the board, which I was like, holy cow, you're really taking Hampton when Barron's on the board? So I would disagree with that. They still had Zabel, Ezeiruaku, Grant, and Nolen on the board at that point. In the 2nd, they took Mason Taylor. And in the 3rd, they took Jonah Sabanaya, the tackle, but probably guard when he comes to the NFL out of Arizona. And Trey Amos and Harold Phantom were still on the board in the 3rd, which seemed a little crazy to me. Amos isn't going to be there in the 3rd. NFL.com, Chad Reuter had Ezeiruaku going to him, the edge out of Boston College, and that's why I wanted to get into this, because it was what Brennan asked. Are we going to need to find a long-term replacement for Khalil Mack? I could see Ezeiruaku being the pick at 22. I could totally see that. 16 and a half sacks, I think, at Boston College this year. I think I might have mentioned this last week, I think. First game I watched him was Missouri, and I was like, I don't get it, and because he didn't do much in that game. And then you watch some other games, and you're like, oh, okay, I get it. So yeah, but they still had Derek Harmon on the board, Walter Nolen, Gray Zabel, and Kenneth Grant. I just can't see them taking Ezeiruaku with those guys on the board. He had Mason Taylor in the 2nd, had the running back, Trevor Etienne in the 3rd, had Ty Robinson in the 4th. Already talked about him, the D tackle out of Nebraska, and then had the receiver Keandre Lambert Smith in the 5th. And then Rhett Lewis from NFL.com had him taking Colston Loveland. So with T-Mac on the board, which was wild, Walter Nolen, Ezeiruaku, Mike Green, and again, he had Jahdae Barron on the board too. So there's the mock drafts. That's all the research I did, aggregating those and what people what they had drawn to the Chargers. So it's like the thing and the reason I did that, Lo, is to bring up the point. Think about that. Rhett Lewis, Colston Loveland, Chad Reuter, Ezeiruaku, The Athletic, Omari and Hampton, PFF trading up to get Matthew Golden, Mel Kiper, Gray Zabel. Not one repeat in the most recent posted mock drafts from all of these people as to what they think the Chargers are going to do.
Right. It's crazy. No one said receiver. Did they have any receiver on there?
Just the trade up for Matthew Golden was the only one, going from 22 to 16. But, and I get it. A pass catcher is a pass catcher, right? Look at the Raiders. They didn't really have any receivers last year. They knew that Devontae Adams was not happy and was probably going to be moving on. And Jacoby Myers, a great player, but they could have taken a receiver, and instead they took Brock Bowers. And how did that work out?
Great.
He's a pass catcher. He's just a giant receiver. He's not a tight end. He's a giant receiver.
And you got to realize tight ends it's easier for a tight end to get open to beat a linebacker than I think a corner to beat a receiver, because those guys are both tight ends. Usually, if they're athletic enough, they can usually get by a safe. They're too strong for safeties. They're too physical, too fast for a linebacker. So it's just interesting because tight end to me is very, very important. I'm surprised with the Chargers, when you think about where they're at, you have McConkey. So who is a really true number one? You have some receivers. I know you brought in some couple guys and some veterans, guys you brought back. But if you think about it, McConkey is the best receiver on their team, no matter who you get right now. So it's just interesting to see what they do.
No doubt. There, like we said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different drafts I looked at, all 5 of them different options. All right, let's burn through some of these. So we got that from Brendan. Leave the deep positions for later. Draft that corner O-line in the first. I think that's a huge part of it. That one guy, that, you know, if grades are, it all depends on how close the grades are, right? If the grades are close, then that's when you start to bring that into the calculus. Hey, we've got Zabel ranked exactly even with Derek Harmon, exactly even with Amari and Hampton. What do we do here? Well, we feel like the interior offensive line is going to drop off dramatically by 55. We have Mason Taylor and Harold Fannin rated pretty close to Colston Loveland, so we feel like we're all right there. And, you know, we feel like, oh, here's Barron and the next corner that might be available to us. So, like, that all comes into play. Like, what's the gap if these grades are all equal? If the rate, let's see, Tevin Slayton, Raiders get Ashton. We need someone to plug that middle with our top 3 picks. Yeah, look, you definitely want to draft for the division. You want to think about the division. And I would say this, though, Tevin, I think if Ashton Jeanty goes to the Raiders, one, he's going to a great offensive coordinator when it comes to run game and Chip Kelly. He can call run. He can. Chip always got a weird, I don't know why he got that reputation of being like a spread it out, pass it guy. He was a spread it out, run it guy at Oregon. Think about all those backs that he had at Oregon year in and year out. The LeGarrette Blunts, where he would just punish you, but he did it with tempo and spreading you out. So it was all eye candy. And I know it used to drive defensive coordinators crazy because they're like, all my guys have to do is mind their gaps and just stretch it out horizontally. Don't go vertical. Just stay here and wait. And he would just gash him. So, yeah, I do think if Jeanty goes, A, he's going to a pretty bad offensive line. So maybe you catch a little break there. And B, he's going to a guy that I think can really call run games. So that's the one concern there.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where Gentry go, because he is definitely going to be a game changer in where he goes.
Yeah.
And the Raiders, they need more. They're not just a running back away. You know, Geno's just a stop. He's just going to be a stopgap quarterback. You know that Geno is not the future there. He's a guy that can go win games, but he is not a starter in this league. If you're trying to go far deep into the playoffs, he's just not that guy.
Yeah, I like him. I think it's better than any of the other possible options they could have had out there. It's better than Aaron Rodgers. It's better than Russell Wilson. It's better than Justin Fields. Like, it's better than any of those paths they could have taken. Geno's a good quarterback, man. And especially for the deal they got him on. I thought he was going to end up getting $40-45 million. They got him for $10-12 million less than that. So they end up saving some money there. Jason, seems like corners could slip to 22. No talk on us taking a corner. Yeah, I think it's because it's sort of a shallow group, Jason. I think you've got 2 solid first-rounders in Will Johnson and Jahdae Barron, and I don't think either of them would be at 22. I think if either of them are, they would take them because I would assume they have first-round grades on both of those guys. I think once you get past that, Hairston has some concerns, specifically just kind of tackling and run support. Trey Amos is super interesting. That's a tough one at 22, maybe. It just seems a little bit high that maybe that could be a trade back. Trying to think of who else. There's the Savion. What's his name? Not Savion. Darn it. I can't remember his name now. It's escaping me.
Corner plays corner in. But he'll never be there.
Travis, he's going to get taken second overall.
Cleveland's taking him. There's no way Cleveland lets him get by.
I mean, that's what everybody's saying now that they're. Oh, Siobhan Rebel. That's what I was thinking about of East Carolina. But yeah, I think Benjamin Morrison coming off the injury at Notre Dame, little bit of a risk. You got Azare Thomas out of Florida State. So, yeah, I think those are guys that you might be able – I think Thomas could be there in the second. But, yeah, Barron or Johnson are there at 22. Jason, I think that's a very real possibility. And, you know, who knows? I should probably Google because these things tend to get sideways. Let's see if anybody has picked him up yet. I know he made it through waivers. Let's see. Jack Jones released. He's super talented. Had one of the best interceptions we've ever seen in that 65-5 beatdown of the Chargers. But he's got some issues off the field. But Jack Jones is a heck of a player. He's a Long Beach kid. You know, I love the Long Beach. He's a Poly kid. Let's go Jack Rabbits.
Beach, baby.
So maybe there's something there, but I know you don't cut a guy like that after giving him all that money if there's not serious issues. And we know how much Pete loves cornerbacks, so that's a big, red flag. If Pete's cutting a guy that we think is super talented, has some good size, legitimate, just a click under 6 foot. So anyway, Chargers gone through so many German tight ends. Should it be a priority to help Herbert? Yeah, I agree. Retire Arizona. No doubt. Love Joel. Bowers. No, Bowers will not haunt them. I would disagree. I think if you took a pass catcher ahead of him, if you took if you have Marvin Harrison Jr., if you have Roma Dunze, if you have Malik Neighbors, and if those guys get a little sideways, which I don't think they will, I think all three are going to be incredible receivers. And I think you're like, oh, wow, did we overlook tight end to draft a wide receiver when they're all just catching passes, and we should have drafted Brock Bowers instead? And you're never, it would have to be like there's nothing that shows you that they made the wrong pick with Alt at tackle. He's a franchise cornerstone, and yeah, so I'm all right with that. Money low. What do you guys think about trading back in the first round? I think we did that, Philip, already. We kind of talked about the value with quarterbacks now being kind of flagged to potentially go in the first round, and Jackson Dart and Jalen Milroe. Then yeah, I think that's absolutely, you trade back when there's value. If you got value, you go from 22 to 25, or you go from 22 to 30, and you feel like, what, we're still going to get, again, that's where like Amos could come into play. And now we've picked up a second and a third next year. Yeah, absolutely. I think it depends how many guys are on the board when you project, okay, where are we going to be picking? What's the worst case scenario of who could be there that's now on our vertical? And are we comfortable with that player instead of what we have here at 22 to grab this extra 2, to grab this extra 2 and a 3 or something, So yes, I do think trading back is absolutely something that they probably would be very interested in, depending on who's on the board. Maybe the Raiders should just give us Michael Mayer. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like he's on the board. I mean, he's on the trading block. I don't think there's any way they would want to send him to a division opponent. But if you make, something that I've always heard is, if you do that, you're doing yourself a disservice. If the best offer is coming from within the division, take it. If you're getting the better pick, if you're getting the better deal, just take it. You've obviously moved on from him. You don't think he's able to contribute with you as best as possible, so just move him and take the best return. Tyler Warren plays like Mike Ditka. Yeah, he's a bad dude, man. Appreciate you, Jason. Let's see. What about Harmon at 22? Yeah, we talked about that. B's the boss. I think that's a very real possibility. If Nolan's off the board, if Grant's off the board, or even if they're there, I think Harmon is in that same. To me, those three guys are all in that same conversation. Grant's going to go, and Grant's going to go early, and then I think you've got that Harmon, Nolan, Grant conversation. Is kind of what is what I think you could be talking about. So. Yes, I do think Harmon is a very, very real possibility. So, I look at it, Graham's off the board, and really after that, that's when you start getting into the, like I said, Nolan, Grant, and Harmon are all bunched together right there. So I think any of those three are a very, very real possibility. Have I ever seen a shark while surfing? I have, Jason. Not super close to me. Closest maybe like, I don't know. Actually, that's not true. When I was in Hawaii, I'll tell you a quick story, real funny. At least I think it is. I was in Hawaii. I was at Kaiser's.
Yeah, at least you think it is.
At this surf spot called Kaiser's, and I had just paddled. It's a very local spot. And typically when you go, respect the locals. And I'm just sitting there. I'm not catching any waves, and I'm just kind of hanging out for a half hour or so. And everybody else is kind of catching the waves, and I'm just chilling, enjoying the sunrise, enjoying the people and the aloha that they're spreading. And this guy is on a stand-up paddleboard behind me. And I'm just kind of sitting on my board, and there's a guy to my left, and he's behind me to my right. And the guy to my left goes, "Hey, shark behind." I don't remember the guy's name, but he says his name. He goes, "There's a shark behind you, eh?" And the guy goes, "Yeah, right, sure." And he keeps paddling. He's like, "No, eh, shark behind you, eh?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah, right, sure." And then I turn around and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, there's a shark behind you." And the guy turns around and he looks, he's like, "Oh, yeah. There is, huh?" And then he just kept paddling. I was like, all right, I guess I'm just going to sit here and pretend like I'm cool with this too. And we're good. And yeah, that was the closest I've ever been. And it was probably from like, I don't know, maybe like 20 feet away. It was just kind of, you could see that fin just kind of swerving back and forth. And I was like, damn. But there's 30 of us sitting there and nobody's moving. They're all just like, yeah, whatever, man.
That's
so, yeah,
crazy.
that was, and then I saw one breach when I was surfing once, and I was like, all right, I'm out of here. That thing's hungry. If it's breaching, it was about half a mile out. I could see it kind of jump out of the water. And I was like, yep, we're out of here. And so that one I got out of the water. Or maybe I didn't. I don't remember. Anyway, all right, here we go. Let's see. Come surf in the UK. Yeah, I would love to. Tenali, bring a wetsuit. Yes, exactly. I would assume it'll be a little bit colder than what I got. Don't think we're taking a running back until at least the 4th round. Yeah, I don't think so, Tevin. I think there's a possibility because there is some good value. I think if Judkins and Henderson are there in the 2nd, that's a very real possibility there. I think you get into the 3rd. If Scattaboo, if Harvey, if Sampson is there, I think that's a very real possibility. So I would say, especially how much they want to run the ball, how physical of a team they want to be. I could see that happening. And I know Lowe's trying to pop back in here, so hopefully he can get back in. But yeah, I'm looking like Scattaboo, Judkins, Henderson. 3rd round, I could see Martinez. I could see Harvey. I don't think Caleb Johnson's a natural fit for them. I could see Sampson. So, yeah, I could see them taking one in the 2nd, especially if Henderson's there. To me, that's such a great compliment to Najee. That's a heck of a running back room, man, with those two dudes. He's great catching the ball. He's explosive. He's electric. He can take it to the house every time he touches it, and he's a monster in pass pro, which is very, very hard to find coming out of college. Hear anything about Keenan Allen possibly resigning? I have not, John, to be honest with you. I have not heard anything. You know what? I don't, Jack, I don't think it was Membo that shut him down. I'm trying to remember. I feel like the majority of his reps were on the opposite side. I do think there were some against Membu, but I feel like a lot of them were coming on the other side from where Membu was, the opposite side. Barron is good, but is he a top need? I think so. I think Barron's just that good. That if you can drop a cornerback there, that's that good and that versatile. That yes, the opportunities to just sick that guy on the opponent's best receiver and shut down half the field, to create extra offensive opportunities with turnovers. He's that good. So I do think corner's a need. Right now they've signed a couple. Let's swing and see if we can get St. Just and see if and Arnold and see if we can get them to fit into the system. And obviously you have Still and Hart there, but Barron's that's an elite corner. And elite corners, you know what it looks like when you have elite corners. Think about Sauce Gardner going top 5. Think about why can I not think of him? He just shut down the Chargers in the playoff game out of LSU, going in the top 5. So yes, when you have a talent, corner is a premium position, depending on what the grade might be. Here we go. Let's see. Why don't people think Harbaugh will take Donovan Edwards in the 4th? I think he could. I think it just depends where they have him ranked. You start getting into the 4th round, Tevin, and I think it's who's there and how you have your grades lined up. I think in terms of Edwards, I just don't feel like the overall consensus is that he's in that tier. That he's, and a lot of that is what was his production this year versus last year? How much of that was splitting with Blake Corum versus being the guy? How much of that was having J.J. McCarthy at quarterback to open things up a little bit and coaching all? And it goes on and on and on. But I think, I think if it's Edwards, it's probably later, would be my guess. Jones, Lorenzo, ¿qué pasa? He is either you be attending any draft parties. I don't have any, Mimsy. I think kind of what the plan is for the draft is probably going to go to the presser and do something after with the Chargers is likely what I'll be doing. Don't know about any draft parties as of right now. Low coming as the dancing bear. Hit the like button before the video even starts. You're the best, Matt. Appreciate that. Raiders and Broncos added a good linebacker and safety. Dream stack in the draft for all. I can't do all 10. Jock, I mentioned the way it played out for me when I did it before. So here we go. I just ran a mock draft through the mock draft database, and I got Barron in the 1st round. I got Mason Taylor in the 2nd. Here you go. I'll just run through it. I'll do a couple more picks here. Who do I got available? I need a defensive tackle. I got my corner. I got my tight end. Do I have any running backs here in the 3rd who's available to me? Yeah, I got Scattaboo. I got Martinez. I got Harvey. You know what? I'm going to take Scattaboo at 86. So now I've got my lockdown corner. I've got my tight end. I've got my running back that's going to punish you when Najee goes to the sideline. And here we go as my picks coming up at 125. Let's see what's left for me, and then I'll just kind of cap it at 4 rounds because this thing's going a little bit slower than I would have liked. So here we go. Got offered a 4 and a 7 next year. No, I'm going to reject that trade. And let's go to all. Okay, Kyle Williams, interesting. It's kind of more of a slot, but he's such a good receiver. We got Restrepo, Jordan Phillips. I like it. Defensive tackle. Let's see who we have at defensive line. Robinson, Roberts, not necessarily crazy about that. Let's go to edge. Oh, okay. There's David Walker. That's an interesting one. I know I'm kind of meandering here. Let's go to interior O-line. And Frazier's there. I like Jake Majors, the center, but probably a little too rich at 125. Can probably go Frazier out of LSU there. That'd be a good one. Let's see. Wide receiver. You know what? I'm going to take Kyle Williams. So there you go. There's 4. That's a pretty good stack for me. I feel pretty good getting out with a number 1 corner, a tight end, running back, and a wide receiver to help out the offense and give Herbert some weapons. Would you take Loveland or Nolen? I think I'd probably take Loveland. Just I want to see that tight end back, man, Hunter Henry. Pete, there's a shark behind you. Oh, yeah, K-Bay on Oahu. There you go, Anthony. So I guess apparently that's normal. It was fun, though. I thought they were messing with me. I thought they were kind of clowning the kook that was out there in the lineup with him, but it turns out, nope, they weren't. I've done where we pick up cornerback in the first round and messes up the board. We don't get good enough players at our positions of need. Yeah, I think that it's deep enough, mushroom media, that you're going to still get good players. Tight end, defensive line, offensive line, interior, where you're still going to get some good players. Let's see if Jake Majors made it to me. Let me see. Did he? Come on, baby. Did he make it to me? Oh, no, he didn't. But hey, yes, he did. And Miles Frazier is still there at 158, so we'll take him. As he's a little bit more versatile. There we go. Oh, look at these picks. I got an A, an A+, an A+, an A+, an A. So yes, the stack continues. Got my guard. I've got my wide receiver. I've got my running back, tight end, corner. It's all working out right now. And I still got Majors available to me at 181. Who else is on here? You know what? This is boring. I'm sorry, folks. Yes, filming a Chargers episode tomorrow, as a matter of fact. Stingley, thank you. Derek Stingley. Gosh, shame on me. Would you trade up in the second for Higgins? Yeah, I think about it, Daryl, for sure. I like Higgins, and I think you drop him into the wide receiver room. And I've said this before, and I know people get upset, but yeah, that's a good point. I must hate defense. But I did, Jack, take Jahdae Barron at corner with my first pick. It's just the way it shook out is I felt like I was getting more value from those offensive positions than from defense. So here we go. Let's see at 181. Who can I get on the D-line? Peebles is there. Roberts is there. How about edge? What do we got at edge? Yeah, anyway, boring. All right, so I think we've made it through the comments. We've gone over an hour. Low slipped out. Appreciate all of you. Put Warren and Bowers on the field at the same time. DBs. Yeah, I mean, why not? Right, Michael? It's kind of like figure out how to stop it. You know, Bowers is just a giant wide receiver. That's all he is. He's incredible. So, okay. There we go. Fun stream. I agree, Brendan. Thanks, everybody. Leave your comments below. I'll try to dig into those a little bit later this week when I have some time to kind of cruise through them. And a big thank you to all of you tuned in for the live. These are always fun. And we'll keep doing them until we get the draft. We're only 2 weeks away, 2 weeks in a day. Figure out who they're going to get at 22. If they trade back, if they trade up, going to be awfully fun. But thanks, everybody. Appreciate Lindsay putting this thing together. So for Lo and for me and for all of you that were here, thanks so much for doing it. And we'll be back again next week.